the schedule because you insisted it was essential. How are you going to take responsibility for this?
I'm now encountered the live performance broadcast on TV, with the company's fortunes at stake. Carter is in charge of it, who I am indebted to. And yet, the main performer hasn't shown up right before it's supposed to start.
I'm terribly sorry.
What we need now isn't an apology, but the performer. What are we going to do? The broadcast is about to start.
The director is irritated, and the hall is filled with a sense of urgency.
3 minutes until the broadcast starts.
Damn it, what should we do?
I decided to take the stage with determination. The point is to create buzz, right? Please start the broadcast. I'll go on. And as I made sound fill the hall, everyone's eyes were on me. Because I am. My name is John Miller, 28 years old. I work at a small and medium-sized publishing company. At the branch where I work, we mainly deal with music magazines, and frankly, my performance hasn't been very good. Moreover, I'm someone who doesn't talk about my private life at all, so I haven't been able to build good communication with others, making me somewhat of an outsider at work. Sometimes I feel lonely, but I haven't been harassed just because I'm not good at my job, so it's been a comfortable place for me. However, I've heard some not-so-great news. Due to the general public moving away from magazines recently, our publishing company has been facing financial difficulties. There have been suggestions to move from print to digital media, but that's just following the same strategy as other companies, which would likely lead to repeating the same mistakes. To break through this situation, the assistant editor-in-chief from the head office came over. Her name is Carter. She has a background in creating magazines in a variety of fields including music, sports, and art at the head office, and was chosen to turn our branch around because of her knowledge and experience. She is beautiful, with a mysterious charm that attracts people's attention without being flashy. She exudes an intellectual atmosphere, and many female employees admire her. When she greeted me directly, I was so overwhelmed by her beauty and the excitement that I couldn't respond properly. She launched a major project aimed at revitalizing the branch. It was an article on the most promising young violinist in the US today. True to form, she had easily secured an appointment. If I had been the one to contact them, I would have been turned away at the door, but her connections are immeasurable. Since string instruments are my responsibility, I accompanied her to the music office for the interview. The violinist we were there to interview, Carl Robinson, had a presence about him that made it clear he was looking not just at the US but at the world stage, despite being the same age as me. Carter began with the questions she had sent in advance. I recorded the interview and took notes on parts that caught my interest. After the initial questions were done, it was time to dig deeper. I handed her some additional questions I came up with, in case she found any of them interesting enough to ask. While she was looking over my questions, I checked the audio recording and got ready to record again. Next question: do you have any secrets to enjoying your own music without worrying about how it's judged in competitions? That was my question. Robinson looked at Carter with a bit of surprise.
Do you understand that I don't care about the evaluations at all?
Well,
Carter looked at me. I nodded, responding to his question. Yes. I've always felt that your performances are more for the audience than for the judges. Despite that, you've won numerous gold medals in competitions. I see it as the ideal image of an artist. I wanted to ask for your advice on behalf of anyone who can't currently enjoy their free performance or is in a slump.
Okay.
He laughed with enjoyment.
I'm glad to hear that my enjoyment comes through. Well, I suppose it's about being on your own music and instrument side. Even if you make a mistake or don't produce the sound you intended, that music can only be played by you. I've always practiced cherishing my own sound and focusing on improving what I do well.
Even if you make a mistake. Something came to mind. It was about a concert of his I attended 6 months ago. By any chance, during the Christmas concert half a year ago, when the strings were off but you kept playing, did you see that as an opportunity? His smile froze. He opened his mouth cautiously, as if he had seen a ghost.
How did you know about that?
The sound was different from usual. There were several opportunities to switch to a spare violin, but you didn't, did you? Instead, you used that tense sound to enhance your performance. In later concerts, I noticed you played similarly with a normal violin, so I wondered if you liked that sound. Oh, just a guess from an amateur. Sorry. I talked too much on speculation. Digging into someone's mistake like that is incredibly rude. Not being able to put a period on my curiosity is a bad habit of mine.
Amateur, not at all. I feel like I've just met someone who truly understands me.
For some reason, he was very pleased. It's unusual for someone to feel good about having their mistakes pointed out, but what a generous person he must be. Maybe that's why I ended up saying too much. Normally during interviews, I make sure not to talk about unnecessary things.
Just as you said, I had tightened the strings more than usual for that concert. I've been trying various things during practice and brought that to the stage. But no, because of that, a different sound filled the hall and it was new so I want you to enjoy even adversities like that. I think that's one of the beautiful things about music.
The interview was supposed to last only an hour. However, he said he didn't feel like we were done and spent another hour with us.
After your question, he seemed like a different person. His eyes were shining.
Carter praised me in the elevator of the office building. I braced myself, expecting to be scolded for asking too many off-the-mark questions, and was taken aback. Good thing he is such a kind person.
That would work, but didn't your question draw out his words? It was quite a realistic question. Do you have experience in music?
Not really. As we left the elevator and passed through the office lobby, a woman called out my name.
Could it be, John?
Huh. I looked in the direction of the voice, and there stood my ex-girlfriend from my school days, Amy.
To meet here. You didn't come to apply for a job at this office, did you?
Yeah, it was for Mr. Robinson's interview.
Wow, Carl's.
Her overly familiar way of referring to him made me puzzled. She seemed pleased with my reaction and happily explained.
I'm his girlfriend.
Oh, I see.
He's a wonderful person, isn't he? Great at the violin and very dedicated. Unlike you.
Ignoring her last contemptuous words, I asked, "Why are you here?"
I'm part of the office staff here.
That's how they met, I thought, but didn't say it out loud. Instead, she stared at Carter.
Your new girlfriend?
No, she's my boss. I told you, it was for an interview. I'm working at a publishing company now.
Really? How much do you know about John?
Huh?
Stop it, that's rude. I stood in front of Carter, blocking her view. Amy shrugged without a hint of remorse.
I'm just nosy, trying to tell you the truth. That you're a loser.
That's going too far.
Is it? Doesn't it perfectly describe you, retreating in misery?
Let's go.
Yeah, okay.
We left the office quickly to avoid any more strange ideas being instilled. Amy did not follow us.
Is she your friend, right?
Yes.
I've been wondering since his interview. John, what are you?
What am I? What I am is something I'd like to know myself. I'm your colleague. Just an office worker, nothing more, nothing less.
I see. Sorry for asking something weird.
No problem. Sensing my reluctance to talk further, she didn't ask anything more. After Robinson's interview, she had gathered a lot of information not found in other articles. She was very enthusiastic about writing a magazine article that would attract readers. It's incredibly grateful how hard she's working to turn around a branch that wasn't directly her responsibility. The company is important to me too. Besides her article, there are many other attractive topics. Even though it's our company, if we leave everything to her, we'll never be able to keep our heads up after we rebuild. With that thought, I decided to take on interviews with other violinists as well. Sales of the magazine featuring Robinson's interview article were strong. Initially, it struggled, but as his fans on social media started saying, "This article is a must-see," the sales gradually improved. Catching the posts on social media immediately, Carter ordered an early reprint, ensuring additional stock arrived at bookstores just before selling out. Having demand but no stock means no sales. However, if we misjudge the timing, we will end up with a surplus. Her judgment was spot on.
We have to be bold if we're going to raise our magazine's profile.
Looking coolly at the profit graph, she beckoned me over and pointed to a part of the article.
This section, where you interviewed, it got really good feedback. It's rare to see him speak so extensively. Indeed, he does give off a quiet impression.
I'm glad it directly contributed to sales.
Afterward, he contacted us. He said he had fun, which is quite rare to hear, so I was surprised.
That's great.
So, I was thinking of taking this momentum into our next project. John, will you help?
Sure, what's the project?
TV.
TV. A familiar word, yet it doesn't immediately come to mind. It feels distant from this job. TV, as in television.
Yes. To promote our magazine, we're planning to broadcast a live string quartet. I have contacts among violinists and TV personnel, so I'm planning to ask for their cooperation.
Can we really pull it off?
It's all about taking chances, you know?
Indeed, the more conservative you are, the harder it is to break out of the current situation. If we want to protect this company, we need to broaden our horizons, as she says. Whatever I can do, just let me know. The other staff sitting in front of her looked at me with surprise. It must have been rare for me to show such initiative. If it had been me from a few weeks ago, I would have just said, "Okay, good luck," and stayed out of it.
John, I heard about it. You've offered to help her with the string quartet project.
The next day, the editor-in-chief quietly spoke to me. Yes, Carter's enthusiasm is contagious.
It seems I made the right decision by placing you and her in close proximity.
He patted my shoulder with a gentle gaze, as if watching his son grow.
Don't overdo it. Just pursue what you enjoy, and the results will naturally come. Good luck.
Thank you very much. The expectation from the editor-in-chief didn't become an excessive pressure but felt like a strong push on my back. Finally, the day of the live performance arrived. The planned project was to broadcast on a local news show on Saturday afternoon, featuring live performances by world-renowned violinists. The MC would introduce the string quartet as part of promoting our music magazine, followed by a live performance lasting about 10 minutes. Thanks to the prior announcements by our company and the violinists, audiences were already expressing their excitement on social media, saying, "Can't wait," and "A live performance, what a treat." As I checked these messages in the concert hall filled with related personnel, I realized the magnitude of this project and found myself perplexed by the current situation.
Is there still no contact with him?
The director asked Carter with barely concealed irritation.
Not yet. No response to calls or messages.
What about his family?
He has been back in the country just for these few weeks, so his family is abroad.
One of the violinists, Carl Robinson, who was supposed to perform, hadn't shown up 30 minutes after the scheduled time. And we couldn't get in touch with him. The program had already started, and time was running out.
If necessary, we might consider changing to a trio.
I feel sorry for the other violinists, but I'm sure they'll be able to handle it even if the repertoire changes suddenly. However, her suggestion was immediately rejected.
That won't do. We've advertised this as a quartet, both in the program guide and on social media. And he is the most anticipated performer among the four. Do you realize how many complaints we'd get if he doesn't show? If he can't make it, we need a musician of even higher profile to replace him.
Finding someone at this hour.
You know?
The director crossed his arms and sighed heavily.
We made a slot in our schedule because you insisted. Without a rehearsal and no backup plan, and if you say we can't recover, how will you take responsibility? We accepted this because of the producer's connection.
I'm so sorry.
What we need now isn't an apology, but Carl Robinson.
He has the point. However, we never expected that Robinson, who was always on time and had never been late, would find himself in this situation. There were even worries he might have had an accident. Carter was repeatedly trying to call him. And his secretary who had returned with him, but to no avail. Amidst this, a staff member approached the director.
We start the live broadcast in 3 minutes.
Tell the studio to delay.
Not anymore. They said it's difficult to delay any further.
Damn.
The tension in the hall was reaching its limit, with social media posts asking, when will the performance start, and how long will they keep doing other segments? It seemed our only option was a trio. Just as everyone was resigning themselves to this outcome, I put away my phone. This is Carter's effort for the company, our chance to rebuild our company. I couldn't just stand by idly. That's what I said to myself as I approached Carter and the director with trembling legs. The point is, as long as it's sensational, right?
John?
I stood in front of the viola player, a woman who was on standby. It's been a while, I'm John.
Well, John.
Yes, sorry. Given the circumstances, could I borrow your viola?
Of course, if it's for you.
After gratefully receiving the viola, I whispered something to the cameraman in front of the stage. There's no time to explain to the director. So, please start the broadcast.
Are you serious about this?
If you listen, you'll understand. If I fail, I'll take full responsibility. I positioned the viola. The cameraman signaled the start of the live broadcast.
Hey, what are you doing?
The director's attempt to stop me was drowned out by the sound of my viola. The moment they heard the melody, it was as if time stopped. The director froze. The camera crew, TV staff, and our employees, everyone let the performance continue without interruption, gazing at the stage.
What a beautiful sound.
Someone murmured.
How can a viola produce such a vibrant tone? Who is he?
I don't know either. He's one of our employees, but...
Both the director and Carter were astounded. I signaled to the other violinist and the cellist with my eyes, and they joined in. Now it is a trio. Robinson is still absent, but judging from the reactions throughout the hall, it seems pretty likely. My hands played the tones as I wished. When was the last time I played in a hall like this? The echo, the depth of the sound was comforting. Oops, I almost got lost. This is television. I need to captivate the audience's eyes and ears. The camera didn't stray from me. It must be going well. For 10 minutes, I continued to play, synchronizing with the other two, ensuring the final note would resonate to the other side of the TV. After a moment of silence, applause erupted from audiences. I stood up, and the host MC came up beside me.
That was a wonderful performance. Today, John Miller filled in for Carl Robinson, who was unable to perform as scheduled.
The MC smoothly transitioned as if my performance was planned, introducing me as a special guest.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm embarrassed to say this is the first time I've heard your name. Where do you usually perform?
I was handed the microphone in front of the camera. My role wasn't over yet. I had to leave an impression on the viewers that would compensate for Robinson's absence. I am Currently on a hiatus and making my return today. Samuel Miller. You might know my father, if that helps. As soon as I mentioned that name, a murmur spread through the crowd. The MC looked stunned but quickly switched gears.
Could it be the legendary violinist, Samuel Miller, who passed away 10 years ago?
Yes. My father knew Carl Robinson, and I was asked to fill in for him today as he couldn't make it at the last moment. It's true my father and Robinson were close. The part about Robinson asking me to fill in was a lie. I fabricated a plausible reason on the spot and managed to get through the situation. Since the program was already running late, there wasn't much probing, and the broadcast ended. When the MC said,
"Back to the studio,"
the venue was enveloped in a sigh of relief, having narrowly made it through. Some people even slumped into their seats from relief. Ms. Garcia, thank you very much. I went to return the viola. The viola player Garcia, despite having her moment taken, greeted me with a smile.
It was nice to hear your performance again, John. I heard you had quit music, but your skills haven't declined at all.
Actually, I've been practicing, just a bit.
That's great. It would be nice to play together again.
John, was that story true?
Carter and the director rushed over. I apologized for taking over the broadcast on my own, but the director shook his head vehemently.
Not at all. So think you were the son of the legendary Samuel Miller. This will cause quite a stir. Please, let us organize a special program with you again.
Handing me his business card, I nodded ambiguously. I knew revealing my background would change their attitude completely. That's why I hated it. It's for the sake of the company, so I can't help it. More importantly, I owed an explanation to Carter and the other staff. Everyone, I'm sorry for keeping silent.
John, your performance was truly wonderful. Being a player yourself, that's why your interview with Mr. Robinson was so full of realism.
Maybe so.
It might be best not to pry too much into the past.
No, I'll tell you. While the TV crew was packing up, I talked about my father and my past. My father, Samuel Miller, was a world-renowned violinist. I was hailed as a prodigy, thanks to inheriting his talent and his guidance. Just before graduating from college, I was planning to join my father's office, but then he passed away in a traffic accident. Amid the chaos of the music industry and the office, losing my father made it increasingly difficult for me to express my own music. I was diagnosed with stress, but those around me neither knew nor tried to understand. My girlfriend at the time, Amy, said dismissively,
Think about how it feels to be forced to listen to such terrible music. What would your father think if he saw you now?
I realized that she was only interested in the value of my father's name and mine, so she got into an argument with me, who was completely upset and eventually got dumped. Losing my support system, the attitude of journalists who had covered my father and me at every concert also changed. Instead of asking about my performances, they wanted to know how I felt without my father, what I would tell him about the competition results, what conversations we had had. They pursued stories about our relationship, not about me. They wanted tear-jerking stories about my father more than my dedication to music. Eventually, some openly said they wanted to feature my father, leaving me incredulous. If they truly mourned him, they wouldn't think of interviewing me. I grew tired of the media trying to exploit us for stories. Every time my father was mentioned, it was a reminder that he was gone. Please, don't ask anymore. Don't make me recall the moment I learned of my father's death. Then, I realized that as long as I continued playing music, I was providing the media with opportunities for interviews. If that's the case, I should just quit playing the violin. No one listens to my music anymore anyway. So, I withdraw myself from the world of the violin and tried not to talk about myself as much as possible. If no one knew, I wouldn't have to suffer. However, I didn't know how to make a living as I was only playing the violin. I didn't know how to live without it. That's when the editor-in-chief of the company I'm with now reached out to me. He was a journalist who had frequently covered my father. He was the only one to care for and watch over me after my father passed away. Thanks to him, I was able to get a job, and although I felt indebted to the company and the editor-in-chief, I tried not to talk about myself to those around in order to hide my background. Yet, afraid of inadvertently revealing too much, I continued living that way.
It was like that. Thanks for telling me.
Carter nodded in understanding. The other staff also looked at me with kind eyes. When I joined the company, the editor-in-chief told me I could talk about it when I felt ready, assuring me everyone would be accepting. But I couldn't fully believe it until now. Speaking up today was due to the guilt of hiding, the breakthrough during the live broadcast, and being inspired by Carter's positive outlook.
But are you okay? Now that you've talked about your dad on TV, it might stir up things around you again.
It might, but that's okay. If it helps promote our products. With all of you around, I feel like I can handle anything. Is that too much?
No, that's a wonderful spirit to have.
Yeah, and if any insensitive reporters come around, we'll send them packing.
Another colleague chimed in, showing support. Thank you. But now, I'm in a place where I can talk about memories of my dad, so maybe continuing to share could keep his presence alive. It might even be a good idea to feature my story in our magazine. I was surprised at my own words, recalling the joy of reaching many with my music. Perhaps now, I can convey both my father's story and my own music. It wasn't for nothing that I worked at a publishing company.
Mr. Miller, long time no see.
Turning around, I saw Robinson waving at me.
I was here to watch a friend perform, but your music really moved me. While you may have inherited your musical talent and sense from your father, the unique sound you create is something I really like.
Mr. Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you for such a wonderful time.
Were you trying to play the hero by stepping up at the last minute?
A sharp voice can be heard from behind him. Amy must have been chasing him.
It was thanks to your name's value that everything worked out. Don't get too cocky, or you'll end up hurt like before.
She continued.
Why would you say something like that?
Robinson admonished her, but she persisted.
You have to tell him. If he gets too arrogant, it'll be trouble for him. Plus, if he somehow becomes popular, it might affect your popularity.
That's not for you to worry about.
Oh, as a girlfriend, it's natural to be concerned about the future, right?
Man.
He massaged his temples, seemingly pained.
Haven't you listened to his music? Do you think he's just showing off his abilities? If you had listened to his music, you'd know he's not that kind of person. Even if my reputation were to suffer, it would be due to my own lack of skill, not because of him. Besides,
we were taken aback by his next words.
You seem to think you're my girlfriend, but I've told you several times. That's not the case, right?
Are you just being shy?
No, I'm not. Please give it up.
Amy appeared to be his self-proclaimed girlfriend. Watching someone being rejected so publicly was not pleasant. We managed to defuse the awkward situation somehow. As for what happened next, unable to let go of Robinson and being a fanatical fan from the start, Amy continued to follow him around at work, bordering on stalking behavior. It led to police involvement, her dismissal from the office, and a restraining order being issued. I heard that the reason she became a fan of Robinson in the first place was because he was a famous violinist, focusing solely on the fame and accomplishments gained through effort. It seemed time for her to reflect. I ended up writing an article about my father and myself. I openly wrote about how I had become reluctant to talk to people because the media at the time was more concerned about the episode with my father than about my music, and how I had mustered up courage during the broadcast the other day. As a result of the live broadcast impact, our magazine saw repeated print runs and achieved record-breaking sales within the company. The first person to reach out after reading the article was Robinson. He apologized for not being able to attend the performance due to being trapped in a subway train with his secretary after an abnormal noise was detected, leading to a tunnel stop for safety checks. Without any cell signal and not allowed to leave the train, there was nothing he could do. He also proposed holding a concert together as an apology, with our company getting the exclusive interview. Gradually, our company regained its reputation and has been experiencing strong sales across all magazines. With my name now known as a performer, I've become busy as a violinist. While I should probably be focusing solely on mastering the violin, I love the company and enjoy hearing stories from other musicians. I've managed to balance both. Thanks to everyone's understanding, even though I can't be at the company every day. Especially Carter, she supports me both professionally and personally. She seems to admire me for overcoming my past traumas and showing courage for everyone's sake. I feel the same about her positive attitude saving me. When I mentioned that, she joked that we make a good pair. I learned that you can grow by admiring the person and working hard, not by their status or talent, and I will continue to live my life with music so that I can one day become a great person who can imprint my name in everyone's hearts like my father.